Oh, I did something bad. We don't need this because my English will not be well translated. This is my Google Show English. Yeah, guys, we're going to continue with CSS properties today. And so last week, let's quickly have a recap of last week, what we did. So last week, we started with CSS. I talked about what CSS actually means, how it evolved from when there was no styling on our website to how they started styling HTML, and then how they came about CSS1, and now we have CSS3. I also talked about how to add CSS to our HTML files or to our websites, where we need to add, and all these methods that we use to add CSS. Welcome, Jem. All the methods that we use to add CSS to the files. We talked about who can remind us, who can actually remember the types of methods that we use to add CSS to our HTML files. Yeah, go ahead, Alamin.
The inline method, the internal and the external method.
Thank you. So we have three methods. We have the inline, we have the internal, we have the external. And I talked about what are the circumstances or situations where you use each of them. So who remembers when we can use an inline CSS method? Who? Can somebody remember?
So, did you? I think when we can use an inline is when you just want to work probably on a quote or on a single, not a sentence, just on a phrase or on a word.
On a single
So
line.
with that, you can on a single line of code, and with that, you can just change the style of the code, probably color or the background.
Thank you. Yeah, that's when we use an inline method. What about the internal method? Jen, I see your hands up. When do we use an internal method to style HTML?
Why is my okay? I was raising my hand for inline now.
Tell us internal now. Now that inline.
Are you eating already? Why can't we see your face?
Well, so internal is when we want to apply a line of code in just like a, how will I explain it now?
A block. When
in like a block.
Like a block, yeah. When you just want to style like a block of code, we can use internal. And the last one, external. Who can tell us when we use external method to style our HTML?
When you want to style your website.
When you need to style the entire website or more than one page website, like when you're styling multi-page website, you need to have an external file for your styles, which is going to be the CSS file. And that's when you can call that file inside your HTML for you to be able to style that website. Thanks, guys. I like that. So today we're going to move on to CSS properties. What are the properties of CSS? Of course, we've actually started working on properties since last class. The only thing is that we didn't really spell them out. We're just using them as an example. So today we'll dive in deeper into CSS properties and see how we use them. So a typical example, if you remember the last class, we had something like when you are styling, we have something called background color. That's a property. The entire thing you see here, we call it CSS rule. So everything you defined in a style is called the CSS rule. It's called CSS rule. And we are styling a property called background color. So this is a property, and we are setting that property of background color to red. The same thing we have here. This is a property called color. So we are styling the color property of this H1 element in blue. And the same way, everything here is called the CSS rule. Okay, so we have a lot of these properties that we can have on our websites. Last week, we didn't do much of them. We're only mostly looking at the background colors and the colors. But today, I want you all to know that there are lots of these properties that are available for you to use. Now, how do you know them? Where do you get them? It depends on what you want to do. Whatever you want to do to style your website will determine what you're looking for. and there's always a reference. Like I said, the last class said, you don't cram anything, or like I've always said, we don't cram all these things. They actually become part of you through frequent use. But at the beginning, as a beginner, how do you know where they are? So you can always get them through a link, which I'm going to post right here for you guys. So a typical example of what we have right now is called a named color. So if you look at what we have here, when we want to style, we want to define the property, we are writing the colors as they are, like red, blue, green, and all that. These are called named colors. And this is the link. If you want to know every other name colors that are available on CSS, this is where you find them. So I'm going to put this link in the, where do I put? Okay, I'll put it in Slack, in the general learning resources. So if you guys can open that link on your computer right now, you would see this page. I pasted the link on Slack under learning resources. Please let me know if you can find that channel. It's learning resources. That's where I posted it. So if you open that link, you'll see what I'm looking at right here on my screen. And you can have a lot of color properties. I mean, name of colors that you can use in CSS. You are not going to be thinking of colors in your head, because sometimes the color you're thinking might not be available, or the name or the spelling might be different. So that's why you need to have this as your reference. What I usually do when I was learning to code is that when I have this kind of link, I always bookmark them. So I usually create a folder, a bookmark folder in my system, where I bookmark all these links. Like if you're going to bookmark this in Google Chrome, you just go to the star icon here, you star it. If it's the first time you're doing that, it will throw down something like this, and then you can create a folder and name it whatever you want to name it. So whatever you save will be saved inside there. The link will be saved inside there. And you can also add that bookmark folder into your browser pane, so that anytime you want to go there, you can always click on it, the folder, and look for that link. So it's easy for you to remember your resources, your learning resources, instead of trying to remember all the time. Where's that link that Latas said, Latas gave us that time? Okay, so you can always bookmark them. Now, let's say you're trying to style something and you need to have a color name. You can always go here in that link. You see there are lots of colors here, and you can have the keyword. You can use the keyword. So you can have black, silver, gray, white. Any of these that you choose, you're going to have that exact color. But it doesn't end there. There are times you actually want to have some colors that are actually not available in this list. How would you get that? So there's another link that I normally use. It's called Color Palette. What I use this color palette for is, for example, if I want to design a complete website and I'm thinking of my color combinations, you know, it's hard sometimes to really combine colors. You want to, like, thinking of what should I use as a background? Which color should I use for the heading? Which color should I use for the text? Which color should I use for another page? You know, all those things. It's crazy, and it's hard to really start thinking of all those things while you are trying to code. But there are a lot of resources that can help you, and I use this a lot. So this is, I'm going to send you the link to this one as well. You can bookmark it. So this one gives me palettes in terms of how I can combine my colors to make sense. So each of the frame you see here tells you how you can utilize these colors, and they will blend well on a page. So if you select any of these, if you want to use any of these, you're going to be using each of these colors in that palette for different aspects of your website, depending on how you want to have it. Let's say, for example, I want to use this for my website. If you click on that, it will bring you to that particular one, and you can see how that color is formed. So what you see is that all the colors you see on that page, they are actually made from red, green, and blue. So we call them RGB colors. Everything you see here is made from red, green, and blue. And to know that, if you open any of those colors, any of those palettes, you would see that each of them is represented here. So for example, the first one is this. Sorry, the next one is this. And the last one is here. Now, how this one was formed was, it's a combination of red, green, blue at this percentage. So there's a 22% of red There's a 75% of green and 96% of blue. So this combination gave rise to this particular color. The same thing with this at 27, 107, and 147. So when they combine these three colors, that's how they got each of these. And you can use any of them to actually come up with your website combination. There's another one that gives even more colors in a single palette than this. I'll look for that and send to you guys later. They are very useful. So when you are designing a website, instead of you racking your brain on what are the colors I need to use, you can always go there and select a combination. Now, there are times that you also want to do that, but then you still can't get the best color that you need. Of course, you can mix color by yourself. So how do you mix color? There's another website I'm going to give you. I use this a lot as well. And this one would help you to actually come up with your own custom color that might not have existed before. And how do you do that? You're still going to mix them from red, green, and blue. Now, when you are mixing, you can drag these bars to indicate the percentage or the amount of each colors you want to add. So the amount of green you want to add, the amount of blue you want to add, the amount of red you want to add until you achieve that particular color you are looking for. Once you have it, you just copy that code. Whether you want to copy in decimal form or hexadecimal form. Now, what is this hexadecimal and decimal form? We've always been talking about named color. You remember we were just saying red, blue, green, whatever. But then that's not where it ends. There is also a way we represent colors in hexadecimal. And this hexadecimal is how the computer calculates these colors in numbers. Remember, computer does not know English. It only understands zeros and ones and some other hexadecimal values. If you've done mathematics before, if you've done some maybe indices topics back in secondary school or university, you would know what hexadecimal means, right? We're not going to go there. So this is how computer understands the color. And how do you put this in your own code to be able to specify that color? It's the same thing, the same way we've been doing before. So instead of saying background color red or color blue, you can actually do something like this. If you want, let's say you want to style your H1, you can actually specify the color property and add that hexadecimal value here. You can also use the RGB, which is the decimal value. You can also use this value instead of having this one here. It's the same thing. The browser is still going to read that color and interpret it the same way. The same thing with even the blue color. A blue color has its own hexadecimal value as well. The white color, the black color, every other color has their hexadecimal value. And that's what you can see here. So even when you have the black is the 6 zeros and the hash. That's the black. That's the hexadecimal value of a black color. A silver, a gray, a white is F, all Fs. This can also be represented by 3 zeros instead of 6. And I'm not going to go too deep into that. When we get to a particular level, I'll explain that to you. Even the 6F can be represented as just 3 Fs, and it will still do the same thing. But take it as it is right now, that you can either use a named color value or an RGB hex value. All right. So if you all understand what I'm trying to say here, it's simple. It's just that you can specify different type of properties on your CSS. And when you are specifying your color, you can either use a named color name or a named color or an hexadecimal color or an RGB color. So if you all understand this, and whether you are in the last class or you were able to go through the video, there is a short exercise you guys are going to do for me, just a refresher, to be able to ascertain this knowledge before we move on to the next thing. And that exercise is going to be in your folder. It's the 6.0 CSS colors. And the simple thing you guys are going to do for me would look like this. So we're going to have a page that has a background color. This is the background. And there's going to be hello that has its own background, which is going to be this color. And the hello itself will be white. Now, there's world that has its own background as well. And the color of the world will be white. Now, if you go into that folder let's do that quickly. So I'm going to open my VS Code. I believe you are trying to open yours as well. And as usual, I am going to open the folder, go to where I have those things saved. So this is going to be lesson 7 folder, lesson 7 docs, and we are using 6.0 CSS color. So I will drag that into my VS Code. Now, just like what I just showed now, this is going to be the goal. And I have some instructions right here for you guys. So it's very simple and it's not going to take time. You're going to write your CSS code right in internal. So this time around, we're not doing external, we are doing internal. So I just want you guys to write your code in between the two style tags. So the first thing you're going to do is to make the background of the web page antique white. So I already gave you the named color. It's called antique white. So I want you to style the background of each of this web page, of the entire web page, the HTML web page, as antique white. Next, you're going to style the H1 itself, which is the text, as white smoke. Then you're going to style the background of the H1. Now, the H1 has a background. You need to style the background of that H1 as dark sea green. Then you style the H2 using this X code, right? Like I said, it's going to be the same thing. So instead of using a name Majid.
For kitchen.
Sorry.
Okay. So you're going to use the hex code to style the H2, and the H2 background will be having this hex code. Any question, guys?
Sorry, can you please explain that one more time?
The exercise, right? Okay.
Multi-loss.
So what you'll be doing in this exercise is to style this to so let me open this one on the one side. So we're trying to achieve this, right? This is the goal. And I gave some instructions here. And I want you to write all the CSS code internal. So right now, we're not doing external. We are only doing internal, which means you're writing your CSS code in between the style tags. So the first thing you're going to do is to style the background. So style the background of this web page, the entire web page, to have antique white. Okay. The next thing you're going to do is to style the H1 text. The H1 text, which is this one, the H1. In this case, you can see that we have H1, we have H2. So style the H1 text itself to have a color of white smoke. But then set the background of that H1 to have dark sea green, which is this color. This is dark sea green. Next, you're going to go to the H2, style the H2 to have this X code. I believe it's going to be this color. And then the background of the H2 to have this X code. That is this color, this particular color. And that's it. So you're styling 1, 2. Let's quickly do this together. And you can make corrections where you think you did not get it right. It's okay if you forgot some of the things we did last week, but always try to fall back to your notes. If you keep notes, if you don't keep notes, fall back to your VS Code for the last class. So like I said, try to arrange your work week by week basis. So you can always go back to any week you want to check something. It's okay. That's what we do in coding. We always go back to our previous code to check what we did. Like I said, we don't crap. So let's solve this together quickly. So the first thing is to make the background of the web page antique white. So if you want to set the background of a web page to a particular color, or to set any property on the background of a web page, what element are you going to target? Can someone tell us? What do you target to do that?
The background?
Yeah, if you right for the first question, you are trying to set the background of that web page. What element are we going to target?
HTML.
Thank you. We target the HTML. So we target the HTML elements, and then we can set the property inside there. And what property are we setting?
Background.
Background.
Yes, please.
Background color.
No.
Background color.
We are
Color.
setting background color property. Thank you.
Color.
Background color.
So background color, and it says we should set it to what? Antique white. So I can just color that. I mean, copy that and put it right there. Antique white.
Well, why did my own background work?
So I'm going to talk about that. Background is on the high level to background color. Background color is more specific. Background can be anything. We can use background to set gradients. It doesn't have to be color alone. So right now it would work because there's no gradients at all on this web page. Now, when you start building websites, that has a lot of things working together, like gradient, like movable elements and all that. If you set background, it will destroy every other thing that you've set. So when you are setting a color for the background, you must be specific about background color. Although for now, background would work, but when some other things come in, it would mess up everything, then it will not work. Yeah.
Yeah, because when I type background, just background, and was searching for antique white did not come up on the list.
Yeah, you will not see antique white because background is not specific to color. It can be any other thing that you want to put on the background. It could be image that you want to set on that background, okay? So always use background color if it is just color that you're trying to set. Yeah. All right, so let me try and do I have...
Sorry, Latas, can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Instead of using HTML, why can't we use, because I use universal selector?
So that brings us back to where we were last week. I would not suggest you use universal selector because we are only targeting the background of the web page. Now, what you do when you set universal selector is that you're saying everything on that web page should have that background. And you're going to see that coming into play when we start setting other things on the other elements of the page. So we are only targeting HTML, which is the container that contains every of the other elements, not those elements, but the container itself. That way you have to use HTML. If you want to target everything on the web page, all the H1, H2, H3, H4, P tag, every other tag, including the container, then you use the universal selector. Okay? Majid.
So if I may ask, in what project is it that there's possibility of using universal selector?
Oh yeah.
Now we already know the possibility of using
when you start
HTML.
When you start doing capstone, we did try that last week. There's something pending that I need to clarify anyway, but we did use the universal selector last week in our class. When you start building your capstone projects, the advanced capstone project that you'll be building sometimes in our future classes, you would have a reason to use universal selector, yeah, and you will see how it works at that time better. So that's the first thing. The second thing is to style the H1 as white space. So you're going to target the H1 elements, and then you target the color because it's just the color this time. And we are going to set that to white smoke. So white smoke will be here. Okay, I wanted to preview this, show preview. So right now, what? It's actually not changing, no. Wow. What are we missing here? So we set the background color to antique white, but we can't see antique white. We also set the H1 tag to this, but we cannot see that color. What's missing here, guys? Debug for me.
Let me see. You
refresh your. Don't want to refresh the.
So no, there's a column behind. There's a column here. That's double. What's it called? You put in front of antique white.
You need to take quotation mark out.
Yes.
Quotation mark.
We are not supposed to have them in quotation mark.
Copy and paste.
Is that what you guys are saying? No quotation mark?
No.
Yes. Who agree that there's not going to be quotation mark?
There's not going to be quotation mark.
Okay. Thank you.
I agree with that.
What? Somebody said
even and the column.
It's not going to be there.
That double column.
Yeah.
That double column too.
So why do you think? Which one is column? Semicolon?
Yeah, that's semicolon.
Semicolon is best practice, actually.
Yeah, it is best practice. It must be there.
What is? Oh, it's the best. Sorry, my code is smelling.
That's fine. That's fine. It will run, but it's best
Run,
practice.
but you should be putting it.
Yeah. If you go into if you go into any of the links I've sent to you, you will never see where they wrote colors, where they set colors without the semicolon. It's best practice. It doesn't mean if it's not there, it will not run, but it is best practice. Okay. When you start writing JavaScript, it may not run without the semicolon. Okay, so get used to it right now so that it doesn't affect your code in the future. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, guys. So we add the H1 to be white, which is working. Thanks for the correction. Sometimes we'll be doing these things to see if you guys are following or not, intentional errors, and then see if anybody is following. So thank you for correcting that. So next is we are to set the background color of the H1 to dark green. So we can go into the same H1 and just put a background color. Tell me if what you did was to create another H1 and do background color, or you actually wrote it inside the same
I wrote it inside.
Inside the same curly braces. Okay. Julie, is that what you did? Because only 2 people submitted. So did you write another H1 tag? Because it's going to work too. I just want to know. Did you write another H1 tag for the background color, or you just wrote a single H1?
No. A single H1.
Single H1. Okay. So yeah. So if you're defining anything that has to do with the same element, you can put all of them together. You don't have to create another H1 and then write background and then so yeah, I believe you understand that. So that's for the H1, which is now showing good. The next one is to style the F2 and the background of the F2. So I will just copy, because I'm lazy and most developers are lazy as well. I'll just copy and edit. So I do H2, but then I need to change the colors. So the first one, they said I should style this with this color. So I'll change this to this. So it shows the color, and then I will go ahead and style the background of that H2. So I copy that and style the background. Hey, and that's it.
Ethan, what's going on there?
Bye-bye, Ethan. Meet yourself. So, so this is the solution for this one. Does anybody have any question? So what we've been able to achieve here is that we've been able to set properties of CSS. We've been able to also use the named color types, and we've also been able to use the hex color types. Okay. Now, one thing you need to notice is this. At some point, you can see X colors being written in upper cases. So whether it is uppercase or lowercase, it does not matter. It will still do the same thing. So don't be disturbed when you're reading another article and you see them using uppercase, or you were using upper and you see them using lower cases. It's still going to work the same way. Okay. So yeah. So this is the first thing we will be doing today. If you didn't get it right, or if you're not able to complete it, try and complete it now using this example, and we would move to the next thing if there is no question. So any question 1, any question 2, any question 3, no question. We go. So the next thing is we're going to be looking at will be font properties. Now, apart from setting colors, like I said, there are other things you want to set on your HTML elements. So when you want to be changing the appearance of your text, when you want to change the appearance of your text, there are so many properties that you can set on those fonts. One of them is the color that we are already used to. You can set color to whatever you want to set it to, like we've been doing so far. Another thing you can set is font weight. So you want to set how bold your text would look, or how big, maybe not big, how bold, how thick, how thick your text would look on the web page. So that falls under the property name called font weight. And the way font weight is written, when you are writing your CSS inside an HTML code, is font dash weight, no space, a single word, font dash weight. Now, this may change. Of course, this would change when you start working in some other libraries and frameworks. For example, when you start working in React, where you have to style your React code, it's not going to be font-weight. It's going to be written in camel cases. We'll get to when we talk about the type of cases that we write our code in when they are needed. So for now, we're doing HTML and CSS. You will be writing your font weight as font-weight. And you can specify whether you want bold, whether you want large, whatever you want it. There's a link I'm going to send to you for those ones, for those properties and how to set them. You can also set the font sizes. So the font size is going to be how big you want your font to look like. You know that, of course, we have H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, and H6. Those are heading elements. What about paragraphs? What about when you want to set the size of a paragraph? Paragraph have a standard size, but then you may want to actually size it further. You may want to reduce the size, or you may want to increase the size. How do you do that? By setting the font size property of those paragraphs. Another thing you can set is font family. In this case, is it going to be Times New Roman? Is it going to be Verdana? Is it going to be sans serif or any other type of fonts you want to use? One thing you guys need to know is this. Professionally, these are not going to be determined by you, the developer. Most of these properties are actually determined by the UI UX designer. What you are going to be doing is to be looking at what they specify and then using them. But when you're learning and when you're building a site of your own that you are not using a UI UX, you are your own UI UX, you are your own developer. So you are going to decide all these things. What kind of fonts do you want to use on your website? What are the sizes of those fonts? What is the weight you want to use in some places? And what are the colors you want to use? But just remember at the back of your mind that professionally, it is not your calling. It is the job of a UI UX designer to specify what you're going to be using, and you are only going to be inspecting the UI design to specify those same properties on your own code. Just like an architect that designed a building, the architect will specify for you the size of a window. It is not the job of the builder to say this is the size this window must have. The architect will specify the size of the window and the orientation of the window. It is the job of the builder to now take that size and the orientation and build it as it is. So yeah, now how you use these things is the same way that we've been using the color property. You set them and then specify what you want them to have. Now let's start from H1. Let's start from font size. So when you set font size on your, let's say on your H1 element and you're setting 20 pixel, what does this 20 pixel means? What does it mean? How big is 20 pixel? How do you even know what these things means or how big they would look like before you set them? Now, you all know, or maybe some of us here would know an inch. If you don't know an inch, take your ruler and look at how big an inch is. When you look at an inch or how big an inch is, then you can liken a pixel to an inch. So a pixel, like 1 pixel, is 1/96th of an inch. If that seems like too bogus calculation, if you're familiar with millimeters, a pixel is actually 0.26 millimeters. So how big this looks on your page can be likened to an inch or a certain percent of millimeters. Now, there's another thing called points. So you can either use pixel to specify your sizes or you use points. Now, the same way, a point is 1/72nd of an inch. In other words, or it could also be likened to an as 0.35 mm. So if you know how big a millimeter is, a point is going to be like 0.35 or 35% of a point. Now, when you're working on a Microsoft Word document, and you write something like hello world, this is very small, yeah, I know. When you set 12, size 12, your size 12 is actually 12 points. Okay, so Microsoft Word uses points to size their characters, their alphabets. Okay, so 12 in Microsoft Word is exactly 12 points. So you can imagine when you're setting your sizes on your HTML, you can actually have an idea of, if you're using points, how many points to set when you remember how big it is on Microsoft Word. Although there is room for trial and error, you can always specify a size. And when you look at it and you look at, oh, no, this is too big. You can reduce, you can increase. Yeah. Another thing is one EM or EM. EM is actually a relative value. So anytime you see anybody using EM, or you are trying to use an EM to size your elements, what you're actually sizing is that you're saying this element should take 100% of its parent elements. Now there's something called parent and child element. Let me see if we have a typical example of that. Yes, we do. So let's go back to this example. Now, in this example that we have here, you can see that, let me collapse this. Yes. Yeah.
Sorry to drop back. That the stuff you corrected me, you and Jem corrected me on the colon. That's the semicolon.
Yes.
Once I start it on one, if I don't use it on the other ones, it won't work.
What?
Just use it on everyone.
Are you trying it out to see if you use it and you don't use another one? I don't know about that, whether it will work if you do it here and you don't.
The reason why I asked, you told me I had written all the code, then I realized it wasn't working.
Okay.
That I was trying to preview it trying to preview the results, and it wasn't working. So I now had to go debug the codes and to go and check. I realized I'd already used it on one, which is the first one you showed us the example. So I now realized, I didn't put the semicolon. It was showing that it is, the little box, but the white smoke will show the green, but they're not showing on my results.
So sometimes
until I now put it back.
So sometimes it is the OS of your computer. Some OS would interpret it and let it work. Some would not. Because right now we are not actually using the exact browser. We are only previewing inside VS Code for now. A lot of things are normally start seeing when we start previewing inside the real browser. Normally it should not work without this. But it would work for you if you're previewing inside of VS Code. Or it may work and it may not. So that's why it is called best practice. Just use it wherever it is meant to be used, okay? Don't dare it. All right. So as I was explaining, another question? No, okay. So as I was explaining, I was trying to explain the EM values, and I said it is going to take the 100% of the size of the parent. And I was trying to show you guys what I meant by parent. So if you look at this code here, the H1 element and the H2 element, they are actually children of the body element. Why did I say they are children? They are actually enclosed by the body element. So when you have elements being enclosed in another element, the enclosing element is the parent, while the enclosed element is the child, or the enclosed elements are the children. So here, if we try to set the size of body to be, let's say, 20 pixels, and we now said our LO, the H1 element, should have 2 EM. What it means is that this is going to be 2 times the body size. So the body size is 20 pixels, and we say HLO should take 2 EM. It means 2 multiplied by what the body has. So this one will now be 40 pixels in size. Does that make sense, guys? Does that make sense? So we are saying that EM means size this element relative to the size of its parents, of its own parents. So when you're sizing an element and you're using an EM, you're saying, okay, whatever I have on the parent element, which in this case, the parent element to H1 and H2 is body. Let's say you have defined in your CSS code that the body should have a size of 20 pixels. And then you set your H1 to be 1 or to be 3 EM. The actual size of the H1 element would be 3 times 20. That's 60 pixels. Because at the end of the day, whatever type of sizing you use, whether pixel, whether point, whether EM or any other type, everything will default back to pixel in the background, behind the scene. The browser would default them back to pixel. Okay, because the browser would only use pixel to represent stuff. Yes, Gengen?
Okay, so my question is, we've been defining
pixel.
No.
Okay.
HTML, like background for the HTML to cover the whole page.
Yes.
So does that mean that inside the style, we will then be adding something for the body, or do we move style to the body tag?
Yes, you can target body the same way we target HTML here. You can actually target body because body is also an HTML element. So you can do the same thing. You can target body and give it a different color. Let's try that. You'll see the difference. So if I say body and I say background color and I put green, let me have another color, blue. Look at this. Can someone explain what happened here?
I'm a bit confused.
Okay, so I would explain it for you. And
the yellow and the word are what are contained inside the body.
Thank you.
So it's giving both yellow and what the background of blue. But because we've assigned a color to yellow individually, that one is the other is coming forward or to the front, while we have the major one at the back.
That's exactly what happened here. So the body is only containing all the elements on the page. Now listen, we have only two elements on this page, hello and world.
Right.
Now, the body already has a background of blue. So if you remove this hello and world, you would see a tiny blue because there's no element, right? But because there's element of hello and world, and they have a background already, their background is on top. I talked about this last class. I talked about layers, that these things are rendered in layers, right? So the hello and the world, they come after the body. So they are already covering that part of the body. That's why you only see the blue in between the hello and the world.
How does the space?
The space in between is the only thing that the space in between the two is the only place where you can see that blue color. So let's do something. If I remove these H1 and H2 colors, do you see that? So we have the entire body to be blue. But the moment you style those hello and world, the color now comes back. The color now overcast. It's casted on the background.
Now, does it matter the positioning of the code for body and the elements? Like,
you mean the CSS code?
Yes, like if you were to put it to the
bottom. So let's try this. So if I remove this and I bring it down, it's still the same thing. Yeah, because it's still going to be seeing it as body. And body naturally is sitting below. And every other thing you put on inside that body will come on top of it. Okay? Right. Yeah. Any other question? Thank you for the question and thanks for the response. You guys made me happy because I might not touch that if you didn't ask that question. All right. So if there's no other question, let me take the blue down because we don't need this blue. So yeah. So we talked about EM. So like I said, it's going to take a percentage, 100% of the parent if you set 1 EM.
Sorry.
Yes.
All right, come again. So I'm just looking at the boilerplate, right? I'm a bit fixated on that for now.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So I can see like from the doc type, then we have the HTML. So if we're hitting the HTML, it's like the entire page.
Yes.
The body sort of lies below the head. So what if we wanted to, I don't know how my brain is reading this thing. Normally when we're writing code, that head is where we sort of put the heading sort of.
Yeah, heading and the style and all that. Yeah, here.
Right. And that's normally is that the title of the page? Sorry.
That's the metadata. So that's where you set the title. If there's any script you want to run, like CSS, like JavaScript, you put them in the head. What it means is that when your website is being rendered, it gets rendered from the top. So normally you want your CSS code to get loaded first before the HTML displays. We can actually take them out and put them somewhere else. It will still work, but what happens is that you first of all see your hello world in looking very stupid and ugly, and after some seconds or after some minutes, then the color kicks in because it's rendering from the top to the bottom. So we keep them in the head because we want them to get loaded first before we load the HTML body.
Okay, and this title is normally what we see on that web link.
It's what we see somewhere here in the browser. Whatever you set in the title tag, right now we don't have a title tag. If you set a title tag inside the head, we have it, sorry. We have title and it says color, and that's why you see colors here.
Right. Okay, thank you. My brain has relaxed.
You're welcome. Yeah, relax. So now, that's another way we set font sizes. The last one that I will talk about is the rem. What is this? So the rem is very close and related to the EM. There's a difference between the EM and the REM. Like I said, the EM is the 100% of the size of the parent. If you set one EM, or let's say it's a percentage of the size of the parent element. But we can also use REM. The REM is going to be a percentage of the root elements. So if you set one REM or one rem, it's going to take 100% of the root element. What is the root element, guys? Tell me, what is the root element, if somebody can remember?
The root is our HTML.
Thank you. The root is our HTML. So let's go back to our exercise. Initially, when I was talking about EM, I said it's a percentage of the parent element. And when we're taking an example of hello, the H1 element, if we set H1 element to be 2 EM, and we already set our body to be 20 pixels, this one will be 2 times 20 because body is the parent to hello. Now, let's say we now set our HTML somewhere in our code to have a size of 40 pixels. And then we now say, okay, our H2 should be 3 REM or 3 rem. What would be the actual size of H2, guys? I repeat. I said the REM would take a percentage of the size of the roots, the root elements. In this case, we are going, let's say we now set the root element, which is the HTML. If you remember, the HTML is the root element. Let's say in our CSS, we've already set the root element to be 40 pixels. We now say our H2 should be 3 REM or 3 rem. What is the actual size of our H2 in pixels?
120.
Thank you. 120, because it will be 3 times the size of the root. And the size of the root is 40. So 40 times 3 will be what? 120 pixels. Who is still confused? Somebody is confused. Yeah, talk.
I am.
Wolf of are you recording me? Are you recording me?
He's on the phone.
He's on the phone. I thought he's recording me. Okay. So who is confused, guys?
I said I'm confused, sir. Can you please take that again?
Okay. So you have left the party that you are.
I'm where I am, but I've been following on through now.
Okay. So listen now. And if there's another person that has not understood this, so listen again. I'll go again. The REM sizing is going to be relative to the size of the root elements. Now, you remember that we have what is called a root element. In this case, the root element is the HTML element, which is the entire page. The entire page is
So
our
can I go back to that REM thing?
This one.
Oh, so one is parents, one is root.
Yes. So EM is talking about the immediate parent of that element. Which element is enclosing that element is the parent. The root is the element that encloses everything, every other element on the page. That root You remember burger? I use burger because I know a lot of you will remember easily. That's why I used burger the last time. Burger, hamburger. The hamburger element is the root element, and that hamburger element is the HTML. This one. You can see that is the one that encloses every other thing on this page. You can see, looking at this line, you will see that it goes all the way from here, apart from the doc type, it goes all the way from the top to bottom, right? So it wraps every other thing. That's why it is called the root element. Root, Ishembaye, sorry.
Wow.
Root, Ishembaye, Isheshebere. Like, I'm going to...
Isheshe,
thank you, Isheshe, the root. Let's go back to the root, okay? So root, so it is the root element. Now, when you set the property of an element, let's say you say that H2 element here, let's say you want it to be one REM when you are setting the CSS property of the size, the font size for this. What you're saying is that it should have 100% of the size of the HTML. And let's say you already set the HTML to be 40 pixels in your CSS. I'm just using this as a comment. In your CSS. Who's talking? Alamin?
I said now I understand. Before
Now
I
you
was
understand.
thinking,
Okay.
I was thinking of 40 that Jem said 120 for the answer came from. So I now understand that you only give an instance of the 40.
Yes. So now, if this is 40, and we are saying this should be 1 REM, what will be the size, the actual size of this in pixel, Alamin?
That would be 80.
Why?
Yeah, 100% of 40, like it would be like 40 and another 40, that's 80.
Interesting. Interesting. So 100% of 40 is 80?
Like, if we are saying it's going to be 1 REM,
yes.
Okay, then are we literally saying that it should just be exactly the same side as the root element, which is the HTML?
Yes, it's English. We said, look at it. We said 100% of roots. So when we say 100% of root, it means it's going to be 100% of that. So 100% of means 100% times
I get that now. I get
right?
that now, sir.
So it's going to be the same. If it's 1 REM, it's going to be the same as 40 pixels. Do you agree with me? Okay.
Yes, sir.
So what happens when it is 3 REM?
So that makes it 3 times of what the root is. That's 3 times. 3 times 40, that will be 120.
That is it. So it will be 120 pixel. And if I change this to be 5 REM, it will be 200. Do we understand? Who is still confused? Who is still confused here? Anybody still confused? Anybody? Anybody? Going, gone. Okay. So now I assume that we got that. And I believe that for today, nobody will bring me back to REM and EM, whether you are on the phone or you are out of the phone. So now, that is for EM and REM. Now, I already explained the difference between EM and REM, and I used that as an example. So I'm going to do the same thing here so that it could be clearer in case you're still doubting what I said. So I'm going to set this. Let's say we already set the size of this to be 30 pixels. And I'm going to be asking question now, just to be sure that we all got it. So if I say this is 30 pixels, and then I say this is 20 pixels, and I'm setting this to be 1 EM. No, not 1 EM. And I'm setting this to be 4 EM. Can somebody tell me what is going to be the size of that H1 element, this element, in pixel?
It's either,
Does teacher become the parent? That would be 80.
80 what?
80 pixels.
80 pixel. 80 pixel.
Who agree with Gem and Julie?
No, I've not. I asked a question. I said, does footer in this case become the parent?
Yes, that's the parent. For my own knowledge, that's the parent.
I wouldn't know.
We are saying it is 80. The footer is the parent now.
So, Julie, you say it is going to be 80 pixel for each one.
Yeah. The footer is not the parent.
One EM equals 20.
So, who agrees? Wait, now we are going to do a vote now. Gem, you also say that it's 80 pixel.
I am unsure because I'm not sure.
Yes, it's 80 pixel.
Okay, so you are indifferent.
Them now.
I agree.
Whistle.
Sorry, where is that sound coming from?
Slack.
Now,
yeah, sure.
Now, who agree? If you agree with Julie, please show your hand here. I want to see who agree with Julie. Who agree with Julie? Majid, Alamin. Only 2 people agree with you, Julie. Bye. Bob, okay, you agree with Julie. Who else agree with Julie? Come on, you know, want to know how many people are going to FIR? Only 3 people are going with Julie. Okay. Who disagree? Who disagree that it is not 80? You don't know, but you don't think, you believe that it's not 80.
I don't know.
You don't know. Okay.
I might be misunderstanding the concept of parenthood.
Okay, if you already agree with Julie, lower your hand. I want to see those who disagree now. If you disagree with Julie, but you don't know the actual.
Ogalata, don't make it disagree with Julie. Who believes it's 80?
Who agree with
Use your foot chest. Use your foot chest. I don't know.
Hold it with your foot chest too. And Majid, you are agreeing and disagreeing. You be yahoo.
No, sorry. I have not reduced. I have not lowered my hand.
Okay, so Jide did not agree with you. Ayeleu, or 20-something years. You disagree with your friend on HTML. Julie, are here.
Is that yeah, I don't know. That's my own answer.
Okay, lower hands, guys. Let's talk. All right. So this is still going to be a parent to the H1 element. Whether it is footer, whether it is anything, like I said, any element that wraps another element is a parent to that element.
If it is not footer, what of if it is UNAV? What are we going to do?
Well, it can be Lautech, it can be Binedion, whatever it is going to be the parent. Okay? So it's still going to be the parent, and because it is the parent, and EM is relative to the parent, it means 4 times the size of the parent, right? And that's what makes it 80 pixel. So Julie was right. Is anybody still confused? So if there's nobody confused, I am going to ask another question. And this time, Julie will not answer. I want answer from another person. So if I say the size of this H1 element is 6 REM, what is the actual size of this H1 element in pixel?
180.
180 what?
Pixels.
180 pixels. Who agree with Gem? Who agrees? Show up hand, please. Don't be scared. Agree if you agree. If you don't agree, just don't show hand. Because this agede tawayi, agede, show yourself now.
You don't want to raise leg.
Only
I cannot see the hand, single one. That's why I give twirly.
Okay. Some people will still not agree. I don't know why. Alami, you are not agreeing. Wolf, who are you agreeing or disagreeing? Because you have not even agreed with anybody yet. Is this still on call?
No, deal with him. 20 minutes of program.
Okay. Yeah, so that is actually correct, guys.
I will agree with Gem.
Before Uncle, why will you not agree?
It's Wolf that is talking. I'm using this phone.
Where is Aniomo in this class? Is he sleeping?
He's here, he can listen. NWT raw.
Yeah. Okay. So it's going to be 6 multiplied by the root, the size of the root element. And in this case, the root element is 30 pixels. Okay. So when you multiply 6 by 30, it will be 180 pixels. Right? So these things are very important. You know, one mistake I made when I was learning to code. The moment I learned about pixel, every other thing I block my head from it. Like, why will I be specifying those ones when I already have pixel and I can use pixel anywhere? Until you find yourself working in a team on an existing code base where you don't even see a single pixel. And you cannot be writing pixel where they are using EM or REM. Your reviewers will not approve it. So there's something called review process in coding. You do peer review, before a code is being approved to be merged into the code base. So your code will not get merged, and that means you have not done anything because you are not doing what others expect you to do. You are going to review other people's code. Others will review your code as well. They will make corrections. They will make suggestions. You will fix it. You will push it again. They will review before it gets approved and get merged to the base. All of you are going to do that too before we finish this class, before we finish this entire training. You'll be working in teams, you'll be doing PRs, you'll be reviewing your codes, each other's codes, before you accept it, before it becomes part of the original code. So yeah, you are going to be using this. You don't know when, when you are going to be using either of this. So that's why you need to understand how they work. And when you find yourself using this code or using this type of sizing, you will be able to use them. So let's continue. That's font size. Now, what we are going to do now, it's not going to be like an exercise. It's just going to be a playground. All of us are going to play in that playground. Just to understand how this works. Like I said, not really an exercise. So let's quickly look at that. If you open another window in your VS Code and you go back into that same file where we keep work items, this time you are going to grab 6.1 font properties. So let's grab 6.1 font properties. Now, if you have that open in your font properties file, you see a couple of files here. The only one we are going to be looking at right now is the font size.html. Like I said, we are not going to be doing exercise. It's just going to be a playground. So what the playground means is that we are going to be, why is this thing not coming now? Where is my profile? Should be default. Yeah. Okay. Would you like to open the repository? What repository did you find? I don't know. Don't open anything. So we're going to be just playing around with this to see how these styles work. So if you're with me, you would open your VS Code, open that file, and then make sure you are on font size.html. If you are there, say yay. If you are there, say nay.
Ew.
Okay, the yays have it. Some people are not there. I want everybody to open this, please, except you are Alamin that is on phone. With the exception of Alamin, please open this file. So if you are here, open your font size.html and preview it to be able to see these two things I'm looking at here right now. So what I want us to be looking at here is how these things work. You can see we have a paragraph element that says 1 pixel is 1/96 of an inch, and the ID is called pixel. So if you go to our styling, this is an ID pixel. We set the size to be 20 pixels. You can see how that looks, right? Now look at the next one. It says 1 point is 1/72 of an inch. And we are setting a point. Instead of pixel there, we are actually setting a point. And the point ID is this is where we define that. We are setting it to be 20 points. You can see the difference between 20 pixel and 20 points. Okay. Now, the next one here is we have a footer parent that accommodates 2 paragraph elements. So the first paragraph element is this. One EM is 100% size of the parent element. And the second child is one rem is 100% of the root element. Now, how did we style these two? So for the first one that has an ID of EM, if you go here and look for EM, you would see that the font size is 1 EM. And what does that mean? You can see that there is a footer here, and this footer has a size, okay? The size of the footer itself is 12 points, which is now the parent of this element here. Now, the element is EM. If you go to the style and look at EM, it has 1 EM as a size. What that means is that it is going to be how many points? So how many points would this be? It would actually be the exact size of the footer. And what is the size of the footer? It is 12 points. So this first one is going to be 12 points. And that's why you have it here as 12 points. You see, it looks like size 12 in your Microsoft Word, if you agree with me. Now, the second one is the rem. And rem, if you look at rem in the CSS IDs, it has 1 rem, which means it is going to take 100% of the root element. Now, where is the root element? The root element is HTML. And the root element has been designed or sized to be extra, extra large. So whatever extra, extra large is, that is the same size that the rem element would be having. And that's what you see here. So you can see, I made this to be a playground so that all of you can understand the relationship between these items better. And what you are going to do for the next 5 minutes is not an exercise, but you're going to play around with this. You all are going to be changing these sizes and see how they affect the view. So change any of these sizes as you want. Try to understand why it is changing. If you don't understand, ask me. So for the next 5 minutes, play around here and see how these things are related. Please do. Please try and do this. There's a reason. You get why? You get why? Just try and do this. And if you don't understand why something is changing or it's different from what you expect to see, ask questions for the next 5 minutes. The time starts now. Thank you, guys. Dalo.
Now, wow.
Where's my Pomodoro tomato timer? Let's do 5 minutes quickly. So play around, guys, and tell me what to see. And observe and ask questions if you are confused. While you're doing that, I will put something in my mouth. Look like hunger the wire. I mean, Gem has, yeah, she has been eating and drinking since yeah, I'm suffering like.
I don't get it.
Them, where are you? That's fine. I mean, you never good.
Galatas, observation 1.
Yeah.
So it's like 3 M's is equivalent to 1 extra large. From what I did here, just playing around.
Well, yeah, you can play around, but you don't really.
Or it doesn't matter.
You necessarily don't have to. Yeah, you don't have to be linking the EM to the roots, because you only link the REM to the roots. All right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And if you did not get the first exercise right, I still, even after I solved, I still expect to see the solution in the Slack, guys. So any exercise that we do in class that you are not able to get done, once we solve it together, please do it and post it on Slack. That way, I will know that we are together.
Just a random question.
Mm-hmm.
So you know how normally we'll have like our H1s is supposed to be larger than H2 in that whatever.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So can we make it even bigger by increasing the pixel size?
You mean the H1 and all those heading tags?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you can actually resize them, but it's not a good, it's a bad practice. So the H1 element is usually the biggest of the heading element that we can have. It's a bad practice to try to resize it. If you need something bigger than that, than H1, you don't need to use H1. What you need to do is to use a P tag, resize it, and you can even make it bolder than H1. So you can add a font size and font weight to a P tag to look like that. Let's do that. So let's say we want to make this first one to be bigger than an H1. What we can do is that, what's that H1? Is the EM. So we can go to EM and set its size to be 80 pixel. So you look at this. 80 pixel, right? Now, you can actually make it bold. You know, H1 tag is bold. So you can have font weight and make it bolder. Like that. There are also ways that you can size it by specifying the weight itself. So you can do 900. You can do 400. You can do numbers, right? So instead of using H1 to achieve that, to now resize an H1, you rather use a P tag and then size it as you want. If you need something bigger than H1, bigger and bolder than an H1. Does that make sense?
Yeah, in the previous example where we were doing the multiplication thing, I know we had a H1 inside the footer, and we were talking about putting an REM to be the size of relative to size of HTML.
Yeah.
Isn't that like resizing basically the H1?
So that was an example. It might not be the right thing to do. I was only using that to explain the relationship between when you use EM and REM. It's not that you have to do it on an H1 tag. Okay, maybe I shouldn't have used an H1 for that scenario. But yeah, I get what you're trying to say. I did that example on an H1 and I was resizing it to be in relative to the size of the root element. That's not okay. That's not good. That's a bad practice in the real sense of it. You shouldn't be resizing an H1 tag. An H1 tag would always remain an H1 because there's a different way that the browser reads all the heading tags. So the moment you are resizing it, you are confusing the browser. So it becomes a bad practice. So if you must do a custom size, you use your P tag and size it as you want.
Does this have to do with just H1 or the other H tags?
All the H elements.
All resizing.
Their sizes are constant for the browser. The browser knows how to read them. Okay. But if you must do a custom size of a text or a custom text size, use a P tag and size it as you want. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, guys. So I believe you guys have all gone through this. You've tried it out. If you did not, that's bad, because I want you to actually experience how these things are related. And yeah, and if you do it, I believe you must have learned one or two things. You must have understood how those things are connected and all that. So if you did that, let's continue. So that's the playground. Now, we've talked about font size. Let's look at font weight. This is a very simple one and it's straightforward. So the same way we specified font size property, we can also specify font weight property. And where we are specifying font weight property, there are different class of weight that we can use, apart from specifying an exact number, which you don't have to do at this level. At this level, you need to know that there are two or three major classes of weights that you can set for text. You can either use keywords. If you're using keywords, you can use normal, bold, bolder, or whatever you see. There's always going to be a suggestion for you on your VS Code that you can use based on what you want to achieve. So if you want it to be bold, you specify bold. If you want it to just appear normal, you specify normal. If you want it to be bolder than bold, then you specify bolder, right? That's one type. Another one is you can also specify the weight of, so I've mixed it up here. Sorry about that. So if you want to use bolder and lighter, all those ones, it's a relative method. So that means you are specifying that size relative to the parent of that element. So the same way we were looking at size when we were doing sizes, font sizes, if you specify the weight of an element and you now say lighter, you are saying that this should be lighter than whatever size the parent has. So the browser is going to calculate that itself and make it lighter. If you want it to be bolder than the parent, you can specify bolder. Then it becomes bolder than the parent. So anything you specify under this one, either lighter or bolder, it's in relative to the parent. The other one is, yeah?
Sorry, relative to parent only. This is not something that could be related to
roots. No, it's just to the parent. Yeah. The last one is using numbers. So you can actually specify 100 to 900. This is supposed to be here, and this is supposed to be here. So if you're using number to specify, then you can specify a font weight of 100, 150, 200, 300, 400, 500, up to 900, depending on what you want to see. So 3 ways in which you can actually size a font. It's either you use a keyword, and in that case, you'll be using bold or normal or light. Or if you want it to be relative to the parent, you can use lighter, bolder, and the likes, based on what you see as suggestions in VS Code. And if you want to specify using number, you can specify between 100 and 900. So these are the 3 ways in which we specify this weight of a font. Another thing before we move to doing exercise, and we've not had break, I know that, is going to be font family, before somebody will remind me that they need break. I know we've not had break. Another thing is font family. So font family is talking about the type of fonts you want to use in your website, in your HTML. Now, how we specify font family is a little bit different from what we did in size and weight. Yes, Jem?
I'm back again with my H1.
Okay.
So we cannot increase it's not good practice to resize the H tags.
Yes.
So this includes the fonts,
font weight, and font size. It's a bad practice to increase the size of an H tag or the weight of an H tag, because they already have their unique size and weight. So if you're saying you are using H2 and then you went ahead to go and resize it again, why did you use H2? Because there's a reason why you're using H2. There's a reason why you're using H3, because you want that size and the bold, the feel is what you're looking for. The moment you change it, it is no more an H3. It's something else. So instead of doing that, you use a P tag and size it the way you want.
Okay, but for font family, which is like the style of sorry, when I use style, I mean English.
Yeah,
like
it's the style. Yeah, you get it. It's the style. It's the font style or the font type. Let's say type, the font type. So for the font type, you can use any type. You can do it on any type of element, whether H1 or H whatever is the font type that we're looking at now. H1, H2, H3, they don't come with their type. They have a default type. Every text, every font has default type. So you can specify the type, how you want them to look. The only thing you cannot change, or you should not change, not that you cannot, you should not, is, in fact, as a matter of fact, I think if you try to change an H1, it should not change. Maybe I'm wrong, but yeah, just don't change it for standard practice purpose. Yes. Any other question? So lower your hand if there's no other question.
Sorry, sir.
Jem is a rebel. Jem is a rebel. They rebel everything.
Is it what?
So, guys, I'm sorry. Hold on.
Jem, no vessel. Why you want reshaping resize H1?
Is it your H1?
Sir?
Is it your H1?
That gonna rebel. Why you want resize H1?
I don't.
Is it your own H1, Wolf?
Hold on. I don't want to. Just that all his examples before the font weight and the font whatever. He made them with H1s now, and I remember him saying H1 we should not touch it. That's why I'm asking, like, is it just example or can we actually be resizing?
You go stop on when you this small, especially when they tell you me do something. You go scratch your body. Okay, why you go tell me to make a road?
I sorry for that one. I'm so sleepy, God.
Regulus.
Wolf.
How about now?
Like it.
I just want the resize this one and this two. Make I look on them from afar.
And you know one funny thing, this thing we are doing as far as the H1 whatever is concerned, you can still use it for images too. When we get to some level, like if you have like the way we shaped our images, so you can also shape some images to maybe one line or whatever of the one you've initially said. I read something like that, child, but I'm not too sure. I'm not even ready to bother myself until Atas teaches us. I don't want to give myself out there. When we do.
All right, guys.
But do you know what I realized?
Okay. Bro. Don't arrive at anything. Let me finish this part. I need to go and pick my kids. Okay.
Don't carry any polodo come here again. Go just go carry them.
Okay, guys. Sorry. Okay. So for the font family, what I was saying that there is a little bit different from what we've been doing before. So for the font family, it has always been a problem that when you set a font type in your code and somebody is looking loading your website on their own computer, it has been discovered that different OS has different type of fonts. Although they have common fonts, but there are other fonts that they have that other OS does not have. A typical example, this font called Helvetica, it belongs to the sans serif family. Now, sans serif is common to every OS, but Helvetica is only available on iOS. Windows would not have Helvetica. Now, what it means is that if you specify Helvetica as a font type, as a font family, and somebody looking at your website on a Windows computer, that font would default to Times New Roman because their computer cannot load that font for you to see. So somebody might be saying that, I looked at that guy's website, it looks so beautiful. And you will be looking at that website that I just saw. No, it wasn't beautiful. The font looked very horrible because your computer cannot load that font. So what we do to avoid that problem is that when you specify a particular font type, you are going to set a default font that you want everybody to see when they do not have that particular font. And to do that, you have a comma, and then you specify a generic name. Why is that? You don't want somebody seeing your website on Windows, be seeing something different from somebody looking at your website on a Linux, because both of them will default to different things. Now, your website, only one website is now looking horrible, not just the font. Sometimes it affects the size because some font comes with their standard sizes. So sometimes when you write, it's supposed to be a single line of text that they will see, but because it defaults or it defaulted to something else, it can break that single line to 2, and that is already destroying the structure of your website. So to avoid all this mess, what we do is that you specify your font, your most preferred font type that you want. Then you have a comma. You now specify a generic font type that this your font belongs to. How do you know where it belongs to? I'll show you guys. So you can specify this. If you do this, what it means is that if somebody is looking at your website on a computer that has that particular font called Helvetica, they will see Helvetica. If they don't, they will see it in sans serif because sans serif is general to every OS. They all have it. Yeah. So this is the difference between when you are setting a font family and when you are setting sizes or weights. So the font family, you must set your most preferred, and then you set your defaults in case they don't have it. There's another thing that we do to avoid all this entirely, and I'll show you. Before I go to that one, sometimes you want to set a text or a font type that has more than a single worded name with spaces in between. So for example, Times New Roman, that's the name of a font. But if you just write Times New Roman and you set the default font, it is going to read this differently. It's not going to find Times New Roman, even though Times New Roman is common to every OS. Why? They will only be able to see it if you wrap it in double quotes. You can check here that there is nothing like double quote among the two. But here we have double quotes. Why? Because Times New Roman is a 3-worded name. And because it is separated by spaces, you must wrap the 3-word in double quotes. That's when it would work as it should. So please note that if you're selecting a font type that has more than one name separated by spaces, you must wrap it in quotations. Now, talking about fonts, I want all of you right now to head over to font.google.com. So this is the way we avoid all this problem of there's a font available on one OS, there's no font available on this OS, maybe even the default font is not available, then there's a problem. Now, how do we avoid that totally? You go to, if you guys all go to into your browser and type in font.google.com. So Google, in their character of providing free services, just the way they give us free Android, they've given us free everything. They also magnanimously I'm teaching here. So please listen.
Class. But you will not be slandering Android.
I'm not slandering anybody. I'm just appreciating that they give us free things. So they also magnanimously give us free fonts.
Who is
Wolf. mute yourself completely. I don't want to hear your voice again until I ask for it. You people will be making me to be bringing Kane to this class to flog people. Okay. So Google gave us these free fonts. What this means is that Google has all the fonts loaded into their cloud. So when you build your website with these fonts and you use it the way you're supposed to use it, which I'm going to show everybody, if you use them the way you're supposed to use them and you put them in your code, anybody from anywhere in the part of the world using any type of computer, whether it's Android phone, it's iOS phone, it's computer, it's Windows, it's Linux, you will be seeing the same thing. Why? Because your website is pulling that font from Google Cloud. So everybody will pull the same type of fonts. So it's good for us, right? So how do you use these fonts? If you are already in fonts.google.com, you would see that there are lots of fonts here, a lot of them. So let's say we want to use these fonts. PT Sans Narrow. If you click on that, any of the fonts you want to use, what you need to do, and I want you guys to follow me as I'm doing this. I want you to learn how to use it. So if you go to any of the fonts that you feel like matches what you want to use, you can click on that font. So I'm looking at a nice one that I can use. Okay, let's use Mukhtar. So if I click on Mukhtar, you can see that it comes with sizes. So it has the light one, it has the regular, it has the medium, it has the semi-bold, it has the bold, and you can see there, you can select any size of that font that you want. So how do you select them? Let's say we want this font called Mukhtar, and we want the medium-sized Mukhtar. So we can select, if you click on the select on this part where you have the plus button, if you click on that, and it will show something on the side for you. I closed that thing. I hate to close that thing. Now I need to look for how to open it again. Jesus. Okay, let me go back. That thing has always familiar me. Now it's not coming again. Let me look for it. Yes, I got it. It's back. Okay. So I'm going to go back again to do what I did. So let's say you want to select Mukhtar and you want to use this semi-bold Mukhtar. What you're going to do is to look at the side here where you have select whatever size you want to select. You click on that plus. It will open something on the side for you here. Now, what that is showing you is that you are selecting Mukhtar semi-bold. If you feel like, no, I don't want that, you can remove it. Either you click on this to remove it, or if you have more than one, you can click on remove all to remove that and add another one. Now, let's say this is all we want, okay? Now, you will see here, if you want to use on the web. So guys, follow me, please, follow me. You say use on the web. How do you use this font in your own website? If you want to use it on your website, there are two ways to use them. It's either you're using it through the link or you're using it through an import. We are not going to be using imports right now. We will get to be using imports when we start doing React. So for now, we'll be doing link because we are working on HTML. So if you select the link type, you see this code right here. You can either highlight and copy the code, or you just click on this icon here. It means copy. So if you copy this, okay? Now, what I want you guys to do is let's go back to our VS Code and let's load fonts. Where's my VS Code? So new window. Let's load our VS Code again and go to our files. So go to my lesson 7, and we are going to load CSS. Where is it? Okay, sorry, we already loaded it now. You should remind me now. We already have it here, right? We only worked on font size. So now we are going to font family. In the same VS Code that you already had before, let's go to font family now. Font family, guys. Why is this thing covering everything? Let me drag this straight. Okay. So let's go to font family this time, not font size. We did font size before. So let me close font size. Now, So font family. So if you guys go to font family, if you have it open already, I want to show you how we link Google Fonts to our websites. All right. So this is how we're going to be linking it. You will copy this code that I showed you here when you already select the size and font you want. You will copy this code and you would go to your, who is drawing on?
Are we copying the CSS or the link itself?
You are copying. So when you click on link, you just click on here, the copy, or you highlight everything here and copy it. So you copy the link. This is the link. All right. When you copy that link, how do you add it to your code? It is going to be added in the head. Okay. Who is this now? Jem.
I'm sorry, I just discovered a new thing.
Oh my Jemba.
People are seeing it.
Oh my Jemba, Jem. Oh my Jemba. I know now. There's a pen. There's a pen on.
Jem don't ask me.
There's a pen on Zoom that you can use if you want to write.
Oh, let me try it.
Come on, don't try anything on my screen. Mute yourself and don't try on my screen. No. I would lock your laptop from here. Yeah, you see what you have brought to the class now. Class rep is the one that is destroying that is now disturbing my class. All right.
One more.
So now, how do you add that to your code? That's what I want to show you guys. Okay. So this is how you add it. I don't know if you're looking at your code. I've forgotten what I sent to you. Maybe I sent it with that link. You should be seeing the style tag, the opening and the closing of the style tag. Now, after the style tag, did you guys see anything? Did I put anything there, like the link? No? Hey, yes, you guys.
No. There's no link there.
No.
Okay, so if it's not there, that means I didn't make mistake. So what you're going to do is that code that you copied, just go after the closing style tag and paste it there.
Okay.
So when you paste it there,
there's a link. Oh, there's a link here.
That's what I'm saying. It looks like I mistakenly sent you guys with.
There's a link.
So delete that link.
Okay.
And paste the one you copied yourself. So Julie, you did not open it. You're just lying that there's no link.
No, I've tried that thing. It's not open. So yeah, I know it's not open. There's no link. I thought it was just an example.
So you just carry me handicap. Wow. I might introduce a bad new class. I'm an Orawagon. Okay. If you guys are not opening this thing and it's paining me, it's paining my heart.
It's open now. It's open.
You are the only one that opened it now. Because you are the only one that found out that the link was not there. Nobody else opened it. Let me drink awesome to calm down my ibino. All right, guys. So if you have it open, remove the link. Now paste the one you copied from Google Fonts. Paste it down there. If you do that successfully, now what I want us to do is to find a way to style. If you see that H1, I put an H1 element here called font family. I mistakenly add this things for you. So I have an H1 style in your style sheet, inside your style tag. You will see that I have an H1, and there is something called font family, which is the CSS rule. So what I want you to do is to go into that where you copied that code from Google Fonts. You see what is called CSS rules to specify families. Now you need to copy that. You need to copy that, the one you selected as font, and replace it here. Replace it, this one with whatever you copied. Now what you will see here is that this we are saying our H1 tag or H1 element that is here, this font family, should have this style called, this type called Mukta, or it should default to sans serif. Now, how is it going to find Mukta? It will find Mukta from the link here, because we already copied the link to that Mukta font type into our code. I don't know if you guys understand what we're doing here. So we are borrowing a style, a font type from Google. And for us to be able to use that font type so that everybody that looked at your website would be able to see that font type, you need to copy the link to that font, put it in your head tag, 1, and then whatever you want to style in that font, you target it like we have always done. So in this case, we are targeting H1 to have that font, and you define your font family to have that. And how do you define it? Just copy the code, because Google already gave you the code for the font family. Copy it and put it as your CSS font type, font family. That's what we do here. We just did here. Yes.
Please, I have a question.
Go ahead.
So now on our font family HTML, the code in which was written, after the style, the closing tag of style, we're supposed to have, because I can see the closing tag for head as well, but I can't see the opening tag.
Opening for head is outside now. You can see head here.
Okay. Sorry, it's up. Thank you.
Head is wrapping.
I've been looking for it. Okay, yeah, I've seen it.
Okay.
I've seen it.
So if you add it here properly, you would see that that's font family for this H1. Please mute yourself. For this H1 is going to change. How do you know? You can see that it's not looking like every other font on this page, because they all have different font family that I have specified for you here. Okay, so what you are going to do is to understand how this works, how we set font family, I mean their name, and if you need to use a generic font from Google, how you can grab that when you search for the font you want to use, how you can grab it and link it in your website. That's what we just did here. You're going to take time later to go through this because I'm going to pick my kids shortly, but I would like to get to a point where I can give you an exercise that you guys would do before I come back. So the playground thing, you're going to play on that code later, like we did before for font weight and font size. Quickly, before I go, there's something called text align. So how we use something like this in one of our exercises last week.
Sorry, I'm very sorry. I didn't get how to import that name into the last thing to do. I've already copied the link. So how to now incorporate it into the font family? Sorry, I'm very sorry.
So you target your element that you want to use that font family for. In this case, we are targeting H1. Where then you will define your font family, or just go to that font you selected on Google Fonts. The other part of it where you see CSS rules to specify families. This is the code. You copy this code either by highlighting and copy, or you just click on copy, and then you put that inside here, inside where you are targeting the element. That's all. So it will look for this font link and render it based on what Google specified. So it's going to be using this particular font for you. That's how it works. So you first of all copy this link, put it in your head tag, and then when you're defining your CSS rules, you use this.
Wait, I'm a little
I lost. I'm not coming back, Jem. I need to round this part up and then come back. When I come back, I can ask the question, because I was shouting on top of my voice on this particular part. So text align. Text align is where you define how you want to align your text. So let's say you want to align an H1 element. You have to define the property called text-align, no space, single word. And then specify whether you want it to be center, whether you want it to be start or end. And as you know from the word, let's say you have your web page having this width. If you want it to have an alignment of start, your text will be here. If you want it to have an alignment of center, your text will be here. And if you want it to have an alignment of end, your text will be here. So it's as simple as ABC. Now, how do you know, or where do you find this information on what to define? It's simple. I'm going to post this link like I did before. This is to the same MDN documents. I'm referring you guys to this whatever, because this is a good resource for you to learn more or to debug your errors. If you have any errors when you are working, it's always going to help. So that's the link to this page. You can see when they define text aligned to be start, you see how this text become aligned. Now, if I change it to this text aligned to be end, you see it aligned everything to the end. You can see the alignment now. Let's see the difference again. So start, end. You see how it does. So you align to the right or you align to the left. Now, if you do make it as center, you can see the alignment. You align everything to be centered. And if you justify, it justified everything for you. So you can define either start, end, center, or justify. And you can see examples here if you look at that link. All right. You can also have other properties. You can have inherit, initial, revert. I want you guys to look at those ones at your own free time and see how they are being used. We'll only be talking about the simple ones for the purpose of this class. So that's how to align your text when you are writing or building your website. Now, so we've defined font weight, we've defined font size, we've defined font family and text align. Now you all are going to do this quick exercise before I come back. You're going to head over to the file, to the folders, and look for 6.1 font properties. And in my own VS Code, which I'm going to open right now. So let's go and do that exercise. And that will fall under fonts. Where is it? In the same file again. I got to do. In the same file again. So in the same one that you opened before. This time we are going to look into the index.html. So we've done font size, we've done font family. Now we're doing the index.html. So I'm going to quickly preview that. Now, when you preview this, this is what it looks right now. So to solve problem is Ben? No? Okay. I hope I have not solved this thing. It looks like I've solved it, Abby. No, I have not. So you guys are all going to be doing this before I come back. I've put some instructions here for you. We are still going to be doing internal styling, not external. So you'll be writing your CSS code below this line. So don't change the one I have above for you. Just add your own after this line here. Now, what are you going to do? I have these elements, H1 and 5 P elements. So to do, first, you're going to change the color of this one to coral. So this one, you're going to change the color to coral. You're going to add a style here to change the color of this element to coral type. So coral. Number 2, you're going to change the font size of this one, the font size P tag. You're going to change the size to 2 times the size of the root font size.
Wahala.
The third one, you're going to change the font weight of this one that says P tag of font weight to 900. Number 4, you're going to change the font family of the P font family element, this one. You're going to change it to the Google font called Caveat with regular 400 font weights. Okay, that's what we just did now. So the link is this. I gave you the link to Google Fonts. If you did not open it before, try and open Google Fonts. Or if you have it before, just look for this. You can search. Let me show you how to search. You can search on Google Fonts. Where's my Google Fonts? Google Font, Google Font. So if I go back to the main page, you can always go up and search font. You can see where you have search fonts. So you can search fonts, Caveat. So you see we have Caveat and we have Caveat brush. I want you to use Caveat. So click on Caveat and select fonts, the one I said you should select. I said you guys should use regular 400. So this is regular 400, this one. Just select it here and it will show you, it will add the code for you here. Copy this link, add it to your head, and then copy this one to set the family. So now I have 2 because I already have Mukhtar before. So I'm going to remove Mukhtar. If you already added one before, make sure you remove it so you don't have two font types. So I've removed Mukhtar. I only have caveat, and you will just copy this to define your CSS rule. So that's what number 4 says you should do. Number 5 says change the P text align to right alignment. So this one, text align, change it to a right alignment. In other words, align it to the right. And last one, finally, change the root of the HTML element, the font size to 30 pixels. That is it, guys. Any question before I go on this assignment?
I'll leave it on your page for font family before you go, Sha.
What's that?
Your screen. Leave it on font family before you go.
Okay, no problem.
Because I think I missed something. Okay. Okay.
I hope we all know that in every class there's a scholar. So as Galatas they go, the scholars will take charge.
Whatever.
Galatas, if they go,
I'm going. So guys, let's do that. Take your time, help one another. If somebody did not get it right, help one another. And when I come back, we'll solve it. Should we solve it? Yeah, we'll solve it. So I'll be back, guys. Thank you.
Bye. If I hug you and you don't hug me back, we'll get problem.
Do the hug work. So first question is change the color of the P color elements to coral color. So we'll come here. We'll select that one that says P color, this particular one. So how do we target this P color to set it to whatever? So what we will do is probably add something like an ID or a class. So let's add a class. If you agree with me, we can add a class and call it Coral. Okay, so if we call it, you can add ID as well. It's not a problem. So if we add class and we call it Coral, we can actually target that class called Coral and style it to be, we are supposed to do the color. So we are setting the color and we are setting it to Coral. And that's it. The color has changed. So we tackled the first question. The second question says, change the font size of the P font size to 2 times the size of the root font element. So we'll come here. We can actually give it a class as well, or an ID. So let's do ID for this one. So if we do ID for this one, we can call that ID 2rem. Since we are doing it to be 2 times, you can call it anything. No, me, I'm just naming it.
Size. What I'm calling it size.
Whatever, yeah, you can call it anything. It doesn't matter right now. Yeah, you can call it size, you can call it 2rem, whatever you call it, that's what you're going to target. So since I'm using ID, I'll use the hash and I'll call 2rem. What's happening here? Why is it not taking my hash? Is it because I'm using
ID?
You did
So let's put a style in there. It said we should put it as 2rem. So because we are targeting the roots, it has to be font size equals 2rem. And that's it for that. So we style this 2rem to have this particular one, font size element, to have 2 times the root element. And the root element, we don't have that yet. So it's not going to show until we style the root element. So we'll get to that one later. So number 3 says, change the font weight of the P font weight tag to 900. So we'll go to this one. We can call it weight. So let's give it an ID of weight. And then we can target weight ID and call it and give it font weight of what? 900. So this one, you can see it's already showing there. It's bolder than the other ones. And then number 4, change the font family of the font family element to Google font caveat with regular 400 font weight. So how to do this is to go to Google Fonts. So let's go to Google Fonts. And we have caveat. It said we should use regular 400. So we have regular 400. I've added it. I can do that again in case you don't know how to do this. So we'll go back. You search for caveat. And when it comes, you select the caveat fonts. And then you look for the regular 400. Select that. It shows up in here. And then you can copy the link. When you copy the link here, you bring it to your code. So you put it inside the head tag after the style. Here, paste it there. So we have the font here. Now, how do you now make it show up here in the font family? Let's add a class this time. And call it caveats. Okay. When you call it caveats, you can target caveats. And you will mute yourself, whoever is talking there. Caveats. And then to style that, we just go back to our Google Fonts and copy the CSS rule here. So we'll copy this CSS rule right here, or you can highlight and copy. But for me, I'll just use this, copy it, and bring it into your CSS definition here.
I know that one well.
So when you save it, you have that font showing up here.
Well,
yes, but how did you now get the font? Oh, your font is not even showing. It's showing now. So
it's showing, but
that's not how we did it.
I just put font family as caveat.
Yeah, so it loaded it because there's caveat, because you are on Mac. Because you are on Mac, yeah. So yeah. And that font is available on Mac. That's why you saw it. Normally you should not see it. It should have it should not show if you are not on Mac. Yeah. So but this is how to do it. So you copy that, you define the font family here from what you copied. And the next one is change the P text align to right align. So we go to text align. Let's give it a class. Call it class right. And then we can target right. Instead, we should give it text align of right. So we just say text align, and we define. Wait up. What is trying to enter? So we just define text align, and we define right. That's it. So it goes to the right. So you can see this is what the assignment is all about. It's just for you to target those elements, give them an ID or a class, target those classes in your CSS rules, and apply based on the instruction. That's what we need to do in this one. Sorry, the last one. Change the root HTML font size to 30 pixels. Yeah, that's why this one has not changed. So we need to now target the root. So the root is HTML. And you can now say font size. How many pixels? 30 pixels. So once we change that, something will change. You will see that this one will change. The one that depends on, that's the font size. This one will now be 60. It should be 60 pixels now in terms of size, because it's going to take the size of this. So why is it not changing? It's supposed to go bigger. Let's see. So font size, this one is 2 rem. We sized it as 2 rem. Okay, I think that the way I put my styling is bad. So let me call it something else. Let me call it size. All right, so if I call it size, I can change this to hash size. Yes, it doesn't want number, that's why. So now you can see that it looks bigger because it's now in relative to the size of the root element. So this is what you should get if you do it correctly. Yeah, I can see those who submitted. So if you did not get it right, you can look at this code. Let me zoom it in for you to see and adjust your code to make sure you get it right. That is it on this assignment. Any question before we close for the day? There are other things we're supposed to cover for today, but since It seems like we're all tired.
Please scroll up small. Scroll up small.
It's getting loaded.
No, down. Yeah.
Looks like it's getting loaded. So we'll suspend it here and complete.
Because this thing is looking like plenty things is entering someone's head at the same time. So
it's because someone is not practicing this thing. You guys are not practicing this thing. That's why. You need to practice. You need to practice.
I'll practice it. I need to practice it.
To make it stick. Yeah.
Yeah. Then I think we probably might need to slow down a little bit so that this brain is not catching up. We're supposed to catch up again. But you're right. If you practice enough, you'll probably get it more. Yeah.
You need to practice, yeah. You need to practice it well to make it stick, to really understand those things behind the scene and how these things work, yeah. Once you practice them, you see that, no, this is actually easy. You can think through how this should work and know what...
Well, what is the meaning of that rem and the hem? The short form for what? The revolution parameters.
Have you Googled it? I think it's relative elements, mass or something. Let me see.
Okay. Let me check.
The root it stands for root M. So what is M?
Okay.
Let me see. I know the meaning, but I think I forgot. Let's see.
Rem stands for root L. For root M.
What is?
It's still the root M. Okay, root elements.
No, not root element. The root element font size. Rem unit means the root element font size. Okay, root element font size. That's what it means. It's not without. I don't think that one matters, Gary. Just know what it does. The EM and the REM, just know what it does, yeah? So this is where we are going to draw the curtain today. I see that the thing is already entering the bone. And it's okay if it's already entering the bone. Just know that we still have a long way ahead, Sha. So you guys should practice more. Please practice. Try and practice these things, even if it's going to be once or twice in a week. Practice before you come to the class. Whatever we do last, practice it before the next class, because we're going to be using them over and over, right? And this is why I said anybody who needs 3 class cannot meet up. It's automatic. It's not possible. So, yeah.
I think we should encourage this weekend, this voluntary Saturday classes for those who are interested.
When we change the font size, it's supposed to get bigger, right? No?
It's not going to go bigger until you set the root size.
Until you change the root element.
At that time, the root does not have a size.
The HTML.
Yeah.
Where is that? Where's that one?
See, line 34. The HTML is 30 pixels.
I set it already.
Line 34. Line 34. So you now go to your whatever again. The child element. This one is the omogongon, you know.
Wait, you don't recite the element now.
So the child element. So right now we are setting. You want to set the size of the font size. This one relative to the root. So when you set the font size of this, there must be a size for the root before you can see that thing change. If there's no size for the root, it's not going to change yet. So until when you now set the size for the root, it will now kick in, because that's when you can calculate, okay, 2 rem will now be 2 times 30. That's when you can now see this one grow bigger. So if you have already set this and it's not going bigger, then something is wrong in your code. Maybe you didn't target the right thing. Yeah. So check it again. Compare the code. You might be able to see where you make mistake. Probably there's a mistake somewhere.
Okay, so
yeah.
So if I'm getting this correctly, with all this our font sizes and stuff, usually if you have like an element you want to And this is the internal method, right?
Yes, we're doing internal.
So if there's something you want to target, you go in there and basically assign a class or an ID.
Yeah.
Target that. But then when you have the EMs or the REMs that you now have to also include the parent and the root, and then style those, or basically.
Yeah, those ones must have the style before the whatever you are setting can kick in. Otherwise, it will not kick in because those ones doesn't have anything defined for them. So, for example, you are styling something to take an REM value. It means you are setting it to relative to the root. So, what is the root size? If the root doesn't have a size, you cannot see that changing because there's no size for the root, so there's nothing to relate to. So, until you now set a size for the roots, that's when the REM can kick in. The same thing if you are setting an EM. The parent of that element must have its own size styling. That's when you can use something relative to that. If there's nothing on the parent and you're using 2EM, for example, there's nothing to set that to in relative to. Okay, so whatever you are relating to must have its own style definition before you can relate to it. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yep.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
You are welcome. Any other question as we are rounding up, as we are closing the class for Bob, I see your hand up. What's going on?
Yeah, I was trying to figure out the style link and
okay
on my Google Fonts. It seems to get it.
Were you here when I just solved it now?
Yeah.
By the way?
I don't know.
Okay, so this is what I did. So you go, let me go back. So you go to the Google Fonts, you search for the CSS that you're looking for the style. In this case, it's caveat.
Okay.
When you find it, you click it to open that style. When you open it, you select the size you want. So in this case, we are using the regular 400. You click it. When you click it, it shows up in here. So it's already been added, regular 400, and this is
mine is actually not showing. I don't know.
So if it's not showing, look at this thing on this side. There's this button up here. Click on that button to show up. Okay. Look at this button. Can you see this button?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you look for that button. You should see this button and click on. When you click it, it should open this panel. Then you can see the fonts you added. If you've added too many, just remove all and add again, so that you have only one. So when you add that one, you copy it here and you take it to your link, to your head. So you go into the head tag after the style, after the closing tag of the style. This is the closing tag of the style. You paste it here before the closing tag of the head. So you paste it here.
So if you have multiple such stuff, you just keep dropping them after each other.
No, you add all of them together here in your Google Fonts. So let's say you want to add another one. Where is it again? So let's say now you added this one. Then I say you should add another font type. Let's say Verdana. Doesn't exist. Let's say what let me look for, let's say Open Sans. You want to add Open Sans. You click on that, you add again. Let's say you're adding italic. You add it. If you look at it, you have two. So you have caveat, you have Open Sans. It has added all of them for you here. You don't need to do it separately. Just copy all of them and take it down to your code and post it.
All right, and then on the individual CSS.
Yes. So on the so on the element you want to use each of them. The element where you want to use caveat, you go and do the CSS rule for caveat. You copy only caveat. The element that you want to style as Open Sans, you copy Open Sans and define it for that particular element.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Is entering the head.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other question? Bob, did you get it now?
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, sir.
All right. If you guys need to consult with your colleagues, consult and work together to get this done. There's supposed to be a project, a take-home project for today. But since we're not able to get to it, you guys should spend time to review all this so that by next class, we'll be able to continue and have that project because that project is going to touch everything we've done on CSS. So if I give it today, it will not make any sense since some of you are still struggling to understand what we've done so far. So just take time during the week, understand what we've done so far, and by next weekend, we'll complete this section and have that project.
Correct.
Yes. Any other question, guys? Does anybody have any other question? Bob, this is not right. Your font size is not your font size is not correct. Look at the other one. The font size is supposed to be correct. Yes, Julian.
So is it because we failed to go through the materials you have been giving us? That's why you don't give us any reading material this time around. You read for us last week that.
Because you already gave us now.
I gave you now. I gave everything for CSS.
No, if they bought us well, if you give us material, maybe we don't read that again.
You see, they argue until they knock you one. Can you just leave it?
Actually, the one I gave you is enough for all the CSS that we'll be covering to all in this class. So you just need to go through that material to read ahead of me. If you read ahead of me, it even becomes easy. Yeah.
Yes.
Becomes easy.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So we still have
I'm also going to the seminar.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
So can you go back to that the code we just finished writing? So let's say there's a multiple. You see this font family. Let's say we had another. Let's say this font size was another font that we wanted to use. How do we now put it for this in this style? How do we connect it? How do we connect multiple ones on the same page like this?
Yeah,
we had multiple fonts, different fonts. Let's say we had another different type of fonts on that particular one. How do we put it?
So that's the question Jen just asked, and I just did that here. So right when you have more than one font, you keep adding those fonts here in your Google Distance. So we now here we have two types of fonts. We have Caveat, we have Open Sans. I can take Open Sans out. I can actually take both of them out. So now there's no font. So if I go back, I can add as many as I want. Let's say we added Roboto type. Let's add Roboto regular 400. If you look at this place, there's Roboto regular 400. I can go back again and add another type. I can add Open Sans. Let's say you have different elements that have different font type on your page. Yeah. So you have all the fonts, you add them, all of them here. Let's say this is the Open Sans that we want. If you look at this place, you will see the two, Roboto, Open Sans. Right here.
So they will now be, every one of them will be in the same link.
Yes, Google will add all of them for you in the same link.
Okay.
So you just need to copy all of, when you are done adding all the font styles that you want to add, just copy it. Just copy it out. Go and paste it. Now, where the difference is that every font that you add, you will see all the rules here. So we added differently. You'll just be using the rules for where you need to use it. So if it's your H1 that you want to use the first one, copy this and use it for H1. Another one, use Sans, Roboto, copy Roboto and use it for the other one. Okay. So guys, if there is no other question, we can call it a day. On this one.
Gladys said very high.
Oh, tell Gladys I'm saying hi, and I'm gladly expecting Gladys in Calgary.
Gladys is gladly coming to Calgary.
Yes, and I'm gladly expecting. Tell her that her official Uber driver is waiting.
Yeah. See what? Let me show you. Oh no! I want the clock idea. It's working. It's working.
Odabo.
Odabo.
See you next week.
Let me stop recording.